Find another place to die, Eleanor. This house belongs to my family now." Those were the words my daughter-in-law, Ashley, spat at me while I was lying on the floor of my own living room, having just tripped over the suitcases she'd packed with my clothes. I was 58 years old, fresh out of the hospital after knee surgery, and being kicked out of the house my late husband and I had built through 30 years of hard work. But let me go back. My name is Eleanor Martinez, and all my life I believed family was sacred, that you give everything for your children, that a good mother sacrifices without hesitation. I was wrong, terribly wrong. 6 months before that moment on the floor, my only son, Daniel, had shown up with his new girlfriend, Ashley, 10 years younger than him, blonde, manicured, and with a smile that never quite reached her eyes. "Mom, we're getting married," he announced, glowing with a boyish excitement I hadn't seen since he was little. "And Ashley had an amazing idea. Why don't we live here with you for a while? We'll save up for our own house, and you won't be alone after Dad's gone." Robert, my husband, had died just 8 months earlier. The house had become a mausoleum without him. The silence was heavy. So I said yes. What mother would refuse to help her newlywed son? What widow would refuse company? I didn't know I was signing my social death warrant. At first, Ashley was sweet. She helped in the kitchen, complimented the decor, called me Mommy. But the way her eyes scanned my antique furniture, the family photos on the walls, the garden I'd tended for 20 years, it wasn't admiration. It was appraisal. 3 weeks after the wedding, the changes began. "Eleanor, these curtains are so dated. I'll buy new ones." A week later, "These photos take up too much wall space. Maybe just keep a few in your room?" Then, "This couch is worn out. My mom has a nicer one she wants to get rid of." Each change was small. Each came with a smile and a reasonable excuse. And me, wanting to be the understanding mother-in-law, the modern mom, kept saying yes, always yes. When my sister Linda visited for Thanksgiving, she barely recognized the house. "Eleanor, what happened? Where's your stuff?" I forced a laugh. "Ashley's helping me modernize. You know, the house needs young energy." Linda gave me a look that said plainly, "You're being manipulated." But I didn't want to hear it. Then came the surgery, a simple procedure I'd delayed during Robert's illness. I would be immobilized for 3 weeks. Ashley offered to take care of me. "Mommy, you opened your home to me. Now it's my turn to take care of you." I should have recognized the poison behind that smile. The day I returned from the hospital, there was a beat-up old SUV parked in my garage. "Whose car is that?" I asked as Daniel helped me up the steps on my crutches. "Oh, it's Ashley's mom's. She came to help you recover." Ashley had barely mentioned her family. When I entered the living room, I found a woman in her early 50s with bleached blonde hair smoking on my porch. Next to her was a man in his mid-50s, belly spilling over his jeans, watching TV on my couch with his feet propped up on the handmade coffee table Robert had built. "Eleanor! Finally!" The woman flicked her cigarette into one of my planters. "I'm Diane, Ashley's mom, and that's Chuck, my husband. Ashley told us you'd need help, so here we are." I stared at Daniel, confused. "Son, how long are they staying?" Ashley cut in smoothly. "As long as needed. You'll need a lot of help, Eleanor. My parents offered to stay so you can focus on recovery." "But I don't have enough bedrooms." Ashley smiled that icy smile. "We rearranged. You'll be in the guest room. It's smaller, closer to the bathroom, safer for your mobility. My parents will stay in the master bedroom. They need more space. And Daniel and I will keep the back room." My blood ran cold. "You went through my things." "Relax, Mommy. We did it with love. Your clothes are all neatly folded in the guest room. I even put scented sachets in the drawers." The guest room was stripped bare, a single bed, tiny nightstand, small dresser. Robert's photos gone, my books gone, jewelry and perfumes boxed in a corner. I limped upstairs to my former bedroom. The door was closed. Inside, the beige walls were now garish purple. The king-size bed Robert and I had shared for 25 years was replaced with one covered in leopard print sheets. Our wedding portrait was replaced by a giant Live, Laugh, Love beach poster. "What have you done?" I whispered. Diane appeared behind me. "Oh, do you like it? That room was so depressing before. Now it's alive." "But this was my room, my things." Ashley's voice hardened. "You're recovering. You can't go up and down stairs. The guest room is practical. Stop being difficult." Difficult. As if I was the problem in my own home. Daniel avoided my eyes. "Mom, she's right. It's just temporary, until you get better." Temporary. That word would become a lie. That night I couldn't sleep. The guest room smelled like mildew and Ashley's cheap perfume. I heard Chuck snoring in my room, Diane watching TV loudly downstairs, and me, the homeowner, exiled to a cubicle like an unwanted guest, and I had no idea. This was just the beginning. The following weeks were a slow descent into hell. Diane woke up at 6 a.m. every day and blasted the TV. Chuck used my bathroom and left it filthy. Ashley ruled the kitchen like a dictator, deciding what and when I could eat. "Eleanor, don't worry about anything," she'd say sweetly. "You just focus on recovering." But not worrying meant losing control of everything. She managed my medication schedule, filtered my phone calls, decided who could visit. When my sister Linda called to check in, Ashley intercepted the call. "Oh, Linda, that's so sweet, but Eleanor's too fragile. Doctor's orders, no visits for now. I'll let you know when she's ready." Later, Linda called my hidden cell, furious. Ashley had shut off my phone, claiming screens disturbed my recovery. Within 2 weeks, I was completely isolated. No phone, no computer, no visitors, no autonomy. Then came the money. Ashley showed up one morning with a stack of bills. "Eleanor, we need to talk about house expenses. With 4 people here, costs tripled. Water, electricity, food. But you said you'd help." "And we are. I'm taking care of you full time. But my parents gave up their apartment to be here. They have no income. It's only fair that you cover the costs. It's your house." I was speechless. "Ashley, I live off Robert's pension. There isn't much left." "Then maybe sell some things. That silverware in the cabinet, those old watches, they're just collecting dust." "Those are sentimental. Choose, Eleanor, sentiment, or a roof over your head." Her voice turned cold. "Otherwise, maybe it's time to consider other options." Other options. I didn't need her to spell it out. A nursing home. Heartbroken, I agreed to sell some items. Ashley handled it. Days later, she brought back $300. That's all they're worth these days. Lie. I knew those pieces were worth thousands. But what could I do? I could barely walk. Then came the whispers. Diane and Ashley murmuring in the kitchen, going silent when I appeared. Chuck talking on the phone about transferring everything soon. Daniel increasingly absent, drowning in debt and looking away. One afternoon, I overheard Ashley whisper to her mother, "The lawyer said if she lives in the annex for 3 months, we can claim she abandoned the main residence. It'll be easier." "And Daniel?" Diane asked. "Daniel does what I say. He owes me 45 grand on my credit cards. He has no choice." My blood froze. They were plotting to steal my home, legally. That night, after everyone had gone to sleep, I dragged my casted leg to Robert's old office. They'd locked the door, but I still had the master key hidden inside a flower pot on the porch. My hands were trembling as I turned the key. The office was unrecognizable. Robert's bookshelves were empty. His desk was piled high with papers that weren't his. Using the flashlight on my hidden backup phone, I began photographing everything: contracts, property transfer drafts, fake medical reports claiming I had advanced dementia. printed emails between Ashley and a lawyer discussing strategies to establish mental incapacity in elderly women, and then, I found the worst, printed messages between Daniel and Ashley. Daniel, are you sure this is right? She's my mom. Ashley, Danny, baby, your mom had a good life. Now it's our turn. She's lived enough. It's time for her to step aside. Besides, you owe me $45,000. Either you help me or I collect. And you know I will. My son was being blackmailed. And yet, he chose her side. I photographed every document, every message. Then I put everything back exactly as it was, returned to my tiny room, and cried silently until morning. The next day, I acted worse than ever, groaned in pain, faked dizziness. Ashley appeared, that venomous smile in place. Eleanor, you're not well. Maybe it's time to consider professional care, she said, pulling a brochure from her pocket like she'd been waiting for this moment. A nursing home, I asked weakly. Not a home, a community, friends, activities, 24/7 care. Look at this one, Cedar Grove Retirement Community. It even has a garden. I recognized the name. Cedar Grove had been in the news for elder neglect and wrongful deaths the previous year. But I don't want to leave my home. Eleanor, don't be selfish. Daniel and I need to start our lives. This house is perfect for a family. You raised your son. You've lived your life. Now let us live ours. The mask slipped completely. No more mommy. No more fake kindness. Just greed, raw and sharp. And if I refuse, she leaned in, icy smile. Then we'll do it the hard way. We have medical documentation proving you're senile. A judge can order your placement. Your choice, go nicely or be dragged somewhere worse. In that moment, something inside me shifted. I'd been naive, too trusting, but not anymore. Let me think about it, I whispered submissively. Great, you have until Friday. She turned toward the door, then paused. And Eleanor, don't try calling anyone. Your phone stays with me. For your safety, of course. As soon as she left, I smiled for the first time in weeks. She didn't know 3 things. 1, I had a secret phone. 2, I had photographed every piece of their fraud. 3, I was not the fragile old woman she thought I was. War had been declared, and I was about to strike back. At 5 a.m, before anyone woke up, I called my sister Linda from my hidden phone. Linda, I need your help, and you can't tell anyone I called. I told her everything, the fraud, the blackmail, the plan to lock me away. She cried on the other end. That witch, I knew something was wrong. Linda, do you know a good lawyer? Robert Hutchinson. He specializes in elder abuse and family fraud. Remember Betty Morrison's case? Her kids tried to steal her farm. I remembered. Betty had won. Her children went to prison. Linda went straight to Hutchinson's office with my photos. After reviewing the evidence, he accepted the case immediately. This is criminal. Fraud, elder abuse, embezzlement. She could face 5 to 10 years, he said. But there was a problem. I needed to meet him in person and gather more evidence. And under Ashley's constant watch, with my legs still healing, it would be nearly impossible. That's when Linda had a brilliant idea. Your post-surgery checkup next Thursday. I'll be there. Doctor, Peterson's an old friend. He'll help. The week leading up to the appointment, I played the role of the confused, dependent old woman flawlessly. Ashley dropped her guard. She left documents lying around. She whispered openly. One night, I overheard Diane and Chuck laughing in the kitchen. How much do you think the house is worth? Chuck asked. At least $600,000. Once we have the deed, we sell and split it, Diane replied. And the old bat. Cedar Grove costs $1,500 a month. With her pension, she can rot there comfortably until she dies. They laughed. They laughed at my death. I recorded everything. Thursday came. Ashley insisted on driving me. I want to talk to the doctor about your care, Mommy, she cooed. At the clinic, I didn't see Linda at reception like we'd planned. Panic rose, but then the nurse called, "Eleanor Martinez?" Inside, Dr. Peterson wasn't alone. Linda was there, and next to her stood a man in a sharp suit. "Mrs. Martinez," he said, extending his hand. "Robert Hutchinson, your sister told me everything, and I brought some friends." 2 police officers stepped into the room. In the waiting room, Ashley scrolled her phone, completely unaware that her world was about to collapse. "Mrs. Martinez," said Detective Morrison, a tall black man in his 40s. "Your sister handed over serious evidence: fraud, forgery, elder abuse. Under state law, this is a criminal case." I showed them everything: the photos, recordings, messages. Hutchinson's face darkened as he reviewed them. "This is enough to open a full investigation," he said. "But to seal the case, we need to catch her in the act, coercing you to sign the property transfer." Dr. Peterson nodded. "I can help." "Eleanor, do you trust me?" Over the next 2 hours, we crafted a trap. He would call Ashley into a private consultation and claim I was deteriorating mentally, so the documents needed to be signed while I was still lucid. She would take the bait. "Once we trigger this," Detective Morrison warned, "there's no going back. She'll be arrested. Your son will be investigated too. Your family will implode." "Detective," I said firmly, "my family imploded the moment she walked through my door. I want justice." Later that day, back home, Ashley gathered everyone in the living room: Diane, Chuck, Daniel. A thick stack of legal documents sat on the coffee table. "Eleanor, sit here," she said, guiding me like a child. "These papers transfer the house to Daniel. It's to protect the property in case you go into long-term care. Just sign here, here, and here." "Shouldn't a lawyer be present?" I asked, feigning confusion. "Stop being difficult," Diane snapped. Daniel mumbled, eyes down. "It's better this way, Mom." My heart broke, but I held the pen. I raised it to the paper. Ding dong. The doorbell rang. Ashley stiffened. "Portland Police, we have a warrant. Open the door." Her face went pale. "Don't open it," she hissed. Too late. Linda had given them a spare key earlier for safety. The officers entered, badges and warrants in hand. Detective Morrison led the way. "Ashley Henderson?" "Yes." "You're under arrest for attempted fraud, forgery, elder abuse, and embezzlement. You have the right to remain silent." Chaos erupted. Ashley screamed it was a mistake. Diane tried to run through the kitchen. Chuck froze. Daniel collapsed to the floor in tears. And me, I felt nothing but a cold, cleansing relief. "You!" Ashley turned to me, handcuffed, her face twisted with rage. "You set me up, you manipulative old witch." Manipulative. I stood from the sofa, dropping the crutches I hadn't actually needed for 2 weeks. "You invaded my home, stole my belongings, forged medical documents, tried to lock me away, and I'm the manipulator." "You're just a useless old hag. This house was wasted on you." Detective Morrison pulled her back. "I suggest you stop talking. Everything you say can and will be used against you." But Ashley couldn't stop. "Tell her, Daniel. Tell her you wanted her out too." All eyes turned to my son. He was slumped against the wall, face buried in his hands. "Daniel?" I asked, my voice steadier than I felt. "Is that true?" Silence. "Daniel." Louder now. "Is it true?" He didn't answer, and that was answer enough. Hutchinson entered holding a box of jewelry. "Mrs. Martinez, we found these hidden in the master bedroom closet, along with 3 Rolex watches that belonged to your late husband." Diane screamed. "That proves nothing. She probably forgot where she put them." Hutchinson pulled out a pawn shop receipt. "Signed by Ashley Henderson, silverware sold for $3,500. Money never reached Mrs. Martinez." The room fell silent. "Chuck Henderson, another officer said. "You're under arrest as an accomplice. We have evidence you actively participated in the fraud." "It wasn't me! It was her!" Chuck pointed at Ashley. "Shut up, you idiot," Diane snapped. Then she turned to me, switching to fake softness. "Eleanor, please, think about Ashley. She's young. She made a mistake. Are you really going to ruin her life over a misunderstanding?" "A misunderstanding," Linda's voice sliced through like a blade. "You were stealing from my sister. Planning to throw her into a nursing home. That's not a misunderstanding." Diane tried to approach me, but an officer blocked her. "Eleanor, think of Daniel," she begged. "If you press charges, he could be arrested too." That made me look at my son, the boy I'd carried for 9 months, raised through sleepless nights, the man who should have protected me. "Daniel, look at me." He lifted his tear-streaked face slowly. "Did you know?" I asked calmly. Silence. "Did you know?" I shouted. I was scared," he sobbed. "She threatened me, said she'd ruin me financially, spread lies. I was trapped, Mom." "And while I was being robbed, isolated, humiliated, where were you, Daniel?" He cried harder. No answer. Hutchinson turned to me. "Mrs. Martinez, do you want to press full charges? That includes your son as a co-conspirator. He signed fraudulent documents. Legally, he's part of the crime." I looked at Daniel, my only son, my last living tie to Robert, and I realized something painful but clear. Sometimes, love means letting consequences fall where they must. "Yes," I said firmly. "Press full charges against everyone." Daniel's cry echoed through the house. Ashley was taken away first, screaming threats and swearing she'd sue me. Diane followed, crying dramatically about family forgiveness. Chuck went quietly, shoulders slumped. Daniel was last. When the officer cuffed him, he looked at me one final time. "Mom, I'm sorry. Please forgive me." I turned my face away. When the door closed, silence filled the house for the first time in months. My legs gave out and I collapsed. Linda rushed to me. "Eleanor, are you okay? Do you need a doctor?" "I need to cry," I said. And I did. For the betrayal, for the loss of my son, for the end of the family I thought I had. But after the tears came, resolve. Linda and Hutchinson helped me document every damaged wall, every stolen item. Professional cleaners repainted the rooms. My furniture returned. My photos went back on the walls. Some things were gone forever. My grandmother's silver, Robert's pocket watch, a few precious albums. But the house was mine again. Within days, the story exploded in the local press. Daughter-in-law attempts to steal widow's home in elaborate fraud scheme. 58-year-old Portland woman exposes criminal elder abuse. The DA took the case seriously. Ashley faced up to 10 years. Her parents, 3 to 5. Daniel cooperated with investigators. He struck a deal, 3 years probation, 500 hours of community service, and no in-person contact for a year, only written communication through lawyers. I didn't fight it. Justice would run its course. A week later, I got a call from Robert's mother, Dorothy, 82, living in assisted care by choice. "Eleanor, I read the papers. That horrible woman. How are you?" Her calm, wise voice was balm to my soul. "Robert would be proud of you," she said. "He always knew you were stronger than you thought." I didn't feel strong then. I felt broken. "Not broken," she said gently. "Mended. Like a bone that heals stronger than before." Those words stayed with me. 3 months later, the trial began. The courtroom was packed. Reporters, neighbors, curious strangers. The scheming daughter-in-law case had captivated the region. I walked in with Linda and Hutchinson at my sides. Across the room, Ashley sat with a public defender. She'd lost weight. Her roots were showing. Her once perfect nails were bitten down. When our eyes met, she looked away first. Diane and Chuck sat at a separate table. Even they seemed deflated. And Daniel, he sat in the front row as a witness for the prosecution, not looking at me once. Prosecutor James Walker was known for being ruthless in elder fraud cases. His opening statement was brutal. This is not a complicated case. It's a case of pure greed, of wolves entering a widow's home wearing sheep's clothing, then trying to devour her. Ashley's defense tried to paint her as a misunderstood young woman trying to help, but the evidence was overwhelming. The forged documents, the recordings, the testimony. When I took the stand, my legs shook, but my voice was steady. "Mrs. Martinez," the prosecutor asked gently, "what did Ashley say to you that day?" I took a deep breath. She said, "Find another place to die, Eleanor. This house belongs to my family now." A wave of murmurs spread through the room. Some jurors shook their heads in disbelief. "How did you feel when you heard those words?" Like I was being murdered, not physically, but in every way that mattered. My dignity, my home, my family. The defense objected. Overly dramatic. "Overruled," Judge Chen replied. I told the entire story, step by step. By the end, several jurors were in tears. Ashley's lawyer tried to discredit me. "Mrs. Martinez, isn't it possible you misunderstood her intentions? That she was simply helping? Stealing my jewelry is helping. Forging medical reports is helping. Trying to have me committed is helping." Hutchinson then played recordings. "Ashley, Eleanor, don't be selfish. You've lived your life. It's time to let us live ours." Diane, "If we prove mental incapacity, the house is ours," the lawyer confirmed. The courtroom was silent. Even Ashley's lawyer looked defeated. Then came Daniel's testimony. His voice cracked as he admitted everything. "I knew what they were doing, and I did nothing. I was scared, but that doesn't excuse it. I betrayed my mother." He also testified that Ashley once joked about making accidents happen if I refused to cooperate. The room erupted. Judge Chen had to call for order. When he stepped down, he finally looked at me, pleading for forgiveness with his eyes. I stared straight ahead. The jury deliberated for just 4 hours. The tension in the courtroom was electric. I gripped Linda's hand so hard my knuckles turned white. "Have you reached a verdict?" Judge Chen asked. "Yes, Your Honor." One by one, the charges were read. Attempted fraud in the first degree, guilty. Embezzlement, guilty. Forgery, guilty. Aggravated elder abuse, guilty. Each guilty felt like a stone lifting off my chest. Ashley sobbed uncontrollably. Diane and Chuck were found guilty as accomplices. Daniel, who had cooperated with prosecutors, received a deal: 3 years probation, 500 hours of community service, and continued no contact except through lawyers. 2 weeks later, sentencing day came. Judge Chen's voice was firm, almost cold. "Mrs. Henderson, you targeted a vulnerable widow for personal gain. This court will not tolerate predators who exploit the elderly." Ashley received 8 years in prison. Diane got 5, Chuck 4. When the sentences were read, Ashley turned to me expecting hatred. All she saw was emptiness. Outside, reporters swarmed me. "Mrs. Martinez, how do you feel?" Relieved, justice was done. Any message for others in similar situations? I looked straight into the cameras. Don't accept abuse, no matter who it comes from. Family is not an excuse for cruelty. You have rights, and you have worth. That night, I sat alone on my porch with a cup of tea. The same porch where Diane had smoked into my flower pots months before. Now, the pots held new begonias I'd planted myself, for the first time in a long time. The silence felt like peace, not fear. 6 months after the trial, my house was fully restored. But more importantly, I was. The beige walls were painted in my colors again. Family photos lined the halls. But the biggest change was inside me. I started therapy with Dr. Sarah Kim, a psychologist specializing in family trauma. "Eleanor," she said in our first session, "what you went through isn't just betrayal. It's trauma. Deep, systemic trauma. It leaves scars." "I know," I admitted. "Sometimes I wake up in the night thinking they're still here. Like I'm trapped again." "That's PTSD," she explained. "You weren't weak. You were conditioned to put others first, to be the good mother, the understanding mother-in-law. Ashley exploited that." That realization was liberating. The shame I'd carried wasn't mine. I started doing small things just for me. I picked up painting again, joined a book club with women my age, took yoga classes to rebuild strength. Linda was always there, not as a protector anymore, but as my sister, my friend. "I'm proud of you, Ellie," she said one afternoon, using the childhood nickname only she dared to. "You've been reborn." She was right. I was no longer the woman on the floor hearing "find another place to die." I was someone new, someone strong. Months passed without hearing from Daniel. Then, one day, a letter arrived, 5 pages, handwritten. He told me about therapy, about working in a restaurant to pay off debts, about volunteering at a senior center. "Mom," he wrote, "I don't expect forgiveness. What I did is unforgivable. But I want you to know I'm changing. I want to become the man you and Dad raised me to be." I cried as I read it. Not tears of rage this time, but something more complicated. Sorrow for what was lost, and maybe a flicker of hope for what could someday be rebuilt. I folded the letter and tucked it away. Not ready to answer, but ready, at least, to live again. A year after the trial, I was almost unrecognizable from the woman who'd been pushed off her own sofa. I'd lost the weight stress had added. My eyes had light again. The only thing missing was deeper human connection. Linda had her family. Dorothy called weekly, but she was far away. I had friends, but no one close. That changed one afternoon at a community talk. A man in his 60s, with gray hair and kind eyes, raised his hand after my speech. "Mrs. Martinez," he said, "your story, it's familiar." His name was George Patterson, a retired history teacher. He'd been manipulated by his daughter and son-in-law, too. Not as extreme as my case, but close. We started meeting for coffee, then walks, then museums. It wasn't romantic at first, just 2 people who understood each other's scars without needing to explain. Slowly, something shifted. I looked forward to his messages, to sharing small joys. One night, after dinner, he stood at my door. "Eleanor," he said gently, "I know trust is hard after what we've both been through, but I'd like to explore this, whatever it is, in your time, at your pace." I realized I wanted that too. It wasn't a fairy tale. We both had triggers and fears. But unlike the toxic relationships behind us, this one was built on honesty. When I had a meltdown over Daniel's second letter, George didn't try to fix me. He held my hand. "You decide when you're ready. There's no timetable for healing," he said. 6 months later, he had an idea. What if we start a support group, not just for victims, but for people rebuilding? We called it Second Chapter. 8 people came to the first meeting, 15 to the next. Within 3 months, there was a waiting list. Stories poured in, painful, but also inspiring. Women starting businesses in their late 60s, men reclaiming stolen farms, widows traveling for the first time. Second Chapter wasn't about being victims. It was about rising again. 3 weeks later, a journalist named Jennifer Walsh called. She wanted to write a feature story, not just about the trial, but about my journey. At first, I refused. I didn't want pity, but Jennifer persisted. "Mrs. Martinez, your story could help others. You're not just a victim. You fought back." That struck me. So I agreed, on one condition. The article would focus on my fight, not just my suffering. When the piece came out, it was front-page news. From victim to victor, how a Portland widow took down a family fraud conspiracy. The response was overwhelming. Emails poured in, phone calls, strangers thanking me for giving them courage. One woman, Patricia, called in tears. "Mrs. Martinez, my daughter-in-law is doing the same thing to me. I thought I was crazy, but I'm not." I spoke to her for 2 hours, shared Hutchinson's contact, explained each step I'd taken. 3 months later, Patricia wrote back. She'd stopped the fraud, reclaimed her home. That's when it hit me. My pain had purpose. This wasn't just about me anymore. My story had become a lifeline for others trapped in the same nightmare. A few months later, I found myself standing at the state capitol, facing lawmakers. My hands shook, but my voice didn't. Ladies and gentlemen, elder abuse by family members is a silent crime. Victims feel ashamed. They fear being dismissed as paranoid. We need stronger laws, faster processes, real protection. My testimony sparked movement. 18 months later, the Oregon Elder Protection Act passed unanimously. The new law expedited investigations, increased penalties for family fraud, and funded support groups for victims. When the governor signed it, he handed me the ceremonial pen. "Mrs. Martinez," he said, "this law exists because you had the courage to fight not only for yourself, but for everyone." In that moment, I felt something deeper than relief. Purpose. My story had grown beyond my walls. It was shaping real change. I left the Capitol not as a victim, not even as just a survivor, but as a voice for thousands who still hadn't spoken up. 3 years after the trial, I received an unexpected email from Daniel. "Mom, I know I have no right to ask, but I'm getting married. Her name is Rebecca. She knows everything. She's helped me become a better man. I don't expect you to come. I just want you to know I think about you every day." I showed George the email. "What do you feel?" he asked. I thought for days. Talked with Dr. Kim. Finally, I wrote back, "I'd like to meet Rebecca before the wedding. Just the 3 of us, over coffee." Daniel replied within hours. "It would be an honor." Rebecca was in her early 40s, short brown hair, intelligent eyes. She shook my hand firmly. "Mrs. Martinez, thank you for meeting us. I know this isn't easy." "Call me Eleanor," I said. Over 3 hours, I saw a different Daniel. He wasn't defensive anymore. No excuses, just quiet accountability. "Mom," he said, "I won't ask for forgiveness again. I've said it too many times. Now I act. I live differently. I treat Rebecca with respect. I work hard. I go to therapy. I'm becoming the man I should have been." Something in me cracked, or maybe healed. "Daniel, I see your change, and that matters. Does it mean you'll come to the wedding?" I looked at the man he'd become through pain and effort. "Yes," I said, "I will." At the small ceremony, Rebecca approached me. "Can I call you mother-in-law?" she asked, eyes glistening. I hesitated. The word carried scars. "How about just Eleanor for now?" She smiled. "Eleanor it is, but I want you to know. I read your book. I know your story. And I promise, you'll always have a voice in our home." Late that night, Daniel asked to walk in the garden. "Mom, what I did, it broke something in me too. I lost not just you, but my own integrity. I've spent these years rebuilding, not to get you back, but to live with myself again." "And are you succeeding?" I asked softly. "I'm trying, every day." Under the stars, we embraced. Not as mother and son of the past, but as 2 wounded people trying to build something new. Not the old bond, but an honest one. 5 years after hearing, "Find another place to die," my life looked nothing like it once did. George and I sat on the porch of our house, watching the sunset. Second chapter had grown to 12 chapters across 6 states. My book was in its 5th edition, translated into 8 languages. The Elder Protection Act had inspired similar laws in 4 more states. But more than numbers, it was the letters that moved me. A 65-year-old woman leaving an abusive marriage, a 70-year-old man reclaiming his stolen farm, a 59-year-old widow starting a business. Daniel and Rebecca visited monthly. The relationship was careful, respectful, not what it was, but something new. One day, Daniel arrived beaming. "Mom, Rebecca's pregnant." My heart clenched, joy, but also fear. "I know what you're thinking," he said. "History won't repeat itself. The house is legally yours. We're stable. We just want you in his life. On your terms." "I want that," I said. "But with boundaries, mutual respect." Exactly. When Benjamin was born, I held him in the hospital. "Hi, Benjamin," I whispered. "Your grandma fought hard to be here. It was worth it." George and I married on the 6th anniversary of our meeting. On our porch, Linda was maid of honor. Daniel was best man. Rebecca held baby Benjamin. My vows were simple. I promised never to lose myself again trying to please others. I promised to honor the woman I've become. That night, I gave a speech. 6 years ago, I lay on my living room floor as someone told me to find another place to die. Those words should have broken me. Instead, they woke me up. I learned that family isn't defined by blood, but by respect. That forgiveness isn't erasing the past, but choosing not to let it poison the present. That love doesn't control, it expands. It's never too late to defend what's yours. Never too late to say no. Never too late to rebuild. The applause was warm, but the real legacy wasn't applause. It was every life that changed because one woman refused to stay silent. Today, at 65, I look back and see 2 Eleanors, the one who was almost destroyed and the one who rose from the ashes. I prefer the second, not because the pain was worth it, pain never is, but because I discovered strength I didn't know I had. Because scars became marks of survival, not shame. Ashley was released after 6 years. She sent me a letter asking for forgiveness and a second chance. I didn't respond, not out of hate, but because some doors must stay closed for our safety. Diane and Chuck disappeared into the Midwest. I don't care where. They are the past. I am the present and the future. Second chapter now has 20 branches. We've helped more than 5,000 people rebuild their lives. The book is in its 10th edition, with a new chapter on reconciliation. Benjamin is 4 years old. He calls me Grandma L. I visit once a week. On my terms, always respected, always heard. George and I travel 3 times a year. Last year, we visited Europe, my first trip abroad since everything happened. Paris, small cafes, museums. I didn't think of Ashley once. She doesn't deserve space in my joy. Linda lives 3 blocks away. We have coffee every Tuesday. Dorothy passed away peacefully at 87. Before she died, she told me, "Eleanor, Robert would be so proud. You became exactly who he always knew you were. Sometimes I still wake up from nightmares. George holds my hand, reminds me, you're safe. This is your house. No one will take it from you again. Strangers occasionally stop me on the street, having read the book or heard my story. Where did you find the courage? They ask. I always smile and tell them, I didn't find courage. I discovered it had been there all along, buried under years of conditioning that taught me to be small, compliant, nice. Every woman has it. She just needs permission to use it. If you're listening to this and see yourself in my story, trapped in a toxic family dynamic, manipulated or controlled by the very people who should protect you, hear me. You are not crazy. You are not ungrateful. You are being abused, and you deserve better. Age is no excuse for disrespect. Whether you're 55, 65, 75, or 85, you deserve dignity, respect, and control over your life. Family isn't DNA. Family is who respects your boundaries, celebrates your victories, supports you through storms, and never uses love as a weapon. Don't fear growing old alone. Loneliness can be healed. Losing your essence, your home, your peace, that takes far longer to recover. Reach out. Lawyers, support groups, therapists, real friends. Build your safety net before you need it. I was 58 when my life fell apart. I'm 65 now, and living the fullest life I've ever known, because it's my life. On my terms, I often look around my house, the colors I chose, the furniture I love, the garden I care for, and feel grateful. Not for the pain, but for the fact that I survived it. That I refused to remain a permanent victim. That I turned trauma into purpose. Just last month, a 72-year-old woman joined Second Chapter. Her daughter had been stealing her pension for years. "Why fight?" she asked me. "My life is already over." I held her hands and said, "Your life isn't over. You still have 10, 20, maybe 30 years. Will you let them define those years, or will you take them back?" 3 months later, she recovered $40,000, pressed charges, and booked a long-dreamed trip to Greece. That's what I want for everyone listening. Not vengeance, but justice, dignity, and the freedom to live fully, at any age. My story began with the cruel words, "Find another place to die." It ends with the most powerful words I've ever spoken. This is my place. This is my life, and I choose to live. Your story isn't over. It might just be beginning. Welcome to your second chapter.